Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of What the Effie. Today, I'm very honored. I have Maria Bonilla with us, and I'm tickled pink to have her here. So, Maria, thank you very, very much for being my guest.
Thank you, Effie. Thank you for the invite. Appreciate to share this Friday afternoon with you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So, by the way, in case you're hearing this, don't freak out that we filmed this on Friday because I'm pre recording now. I used to do them live and I still do them live once in a while, but this one's being pre recorded and it happens to be Friday. All right. So, Maria, tell the audience a little bit about yourself. I know that you are in real estate and I believe you're in Atlanta. Am I correct?
Correct. Yes, I'm in
All
Georgia.
right. What do you do?
Yeah. So actually, I've been, I guess, dabbling with real estate for a while until I got to a point where I'm like, you know, took it serious, right? So I started back in 2018 and I got involved like right after college. I was trying to find something to do. And I stumbled onto Rich Dad Poor Dad conferences that they had. I believe they were called Legacy at the time, but I was one of those that got hooked in and paid a lot of money for a couple courses, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's interesting that book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. I read it when he originally wrote it, so I'm that old, and I'm really happy when people tell me they read the book. But the legacy, that whole mentorship thing turned out to be a bit of a can of worms, right?
Exactly.
Because I heard it was how much was it?
I think the smallest fee because it went based in tiers, so like how many courses you got. But I think the smallest one was like 15,000.
15.
15,000, yeah. The second one was like 25 to 30, and then like the biggest one was like $50,000.
Dang.
Yeah.
And I heard from someone else that it kind of fell apart, like you never really delivered. Am I right?
Right. Well, I mean, it wasn't like a community, like how we got connected is through our community, but it wasn't like that at all. It was more of, you know, where you're paying for these courses and it's more of like it's on you. It's on you to.
So it sounds like it was a bit the old method. When I was young, they had VHS tapes or
Okay.
CDs or workbooks, literally workbooks that they mailed to you. And they're like, okay, this is the system. And there was no internet really. So you did it or you didn't do it. And then when the internet came along, okay, we could see them on the internet, but I guess I don't know, I never got into any of them at that point. So it sounds like they kind of did that where they sent you the material and then it was up to you.
100%. 100%. That's what it was. It was more of like you paid for this textbook or you paid for these DVDs or CDs and you kind of have to figure it out yourself. And they did have some live courses. So, like every so often they would come in town and they would have these courses so you could go. But even while you were there, you felt completely lost because they were like, yeah, we're an open book. You can ask any questions you want, but because you really never did anything or you weren't, you didn't even know what to ask, I guess.
Yeah.
It's like you start to get a lot of questions as you start taking action, but if you're not taking action, then what do you ask?
Exactly. Exactly. And it's also good to see other people taking action and they say, oh shit, I went down that road and I fell in that pothole and watch out for the pothole. It's to the left or the right or whatever. And you're like, okay. So people can help each other to improve.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I
So
try not
what
to.
happened? Did you
Yeah,
actually do it?
yeah, so I try not to take anything with a negative mindset. I'm much of the person that says, well, I got involved, right? And I'm not going to blame, these people because they didn't put a gun to my head and said, do it, right? It came from me. I took initiative. So now I have to figure out how to make that money back. So one way or the other, I have to figure out how to pay myself, right? Whether, no matter how long it takes. And
Was
so
it your own money or did you borrow it?
it was on credit cards actually. Yeah.
Well, that would make you make it pay it back.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously the monthly payments were coming from me, but and then it grew, right? Because you got interest and all that stuff. But I took a chance on myself and I said, I got to figure it out. One of the things I did ask them is like, listen, you guys are only here for a certain period of time. Like, how do I get help on a day to day basis? And they were like, well, why don't you join your local RIA? Right. I was like, RIA, what is that? And they were like, local your local real estate investment association. And I said, okay, well, let me search that up. And that's where I found Atlanta RIA, which is the one that they had at that time. I think they still have it. And that's how I kind of got more involved. And thank God I did, because at that point, that's when it started feeling like a community. That's where I started feeling like, okay, I could get help. I could ask questions. Let me see what they're doing. Let me mimic them. And that's kind of where I started getting more involved in real estate.
Good for you. And what aspect of real estate did you start in?
Yeah, so I had a
Wholesaling,
lot of
fix and flipping, what?
yes, I had a lot of friends that were contractors at the time. So I assumed, okay, well, I have the people, so let me do fix and flips, right? Which I quickly learned that it's not as easy, or I would say as understanding as people make it to be, right? Just because you have the people that do the job doesn't mean you know how to manage those people that do the job, or manage the budget, right? Or know how to do inspections correctly, right?
Or
Which
to underwrite correctly,
underwrite correctly,
or the
right?
market direction.
Exactly. Because at the time, I didn't even, now I'm licensed, fast forward to now. But at that time, I didn't even know like what a contract looked like, right? So, so you're learning as you go. It definitely gave you a lot of lessons. Thankfully, I was able to make it through not losing money, but I,
Yay.
I didn't make much the first couple of ones. I think that at the time the agent made more money than I did.
Isn't that frustrating?
It is. It is.
Yep.
And I know in Effie, I feel like the frustration part is what makes people not continue in this.
Well, yes, if you lose money, that's a problem, especially if you have it like on credit cards or stuff, that sort of thing. But yeah, it is very frustrating. And if you can't see the clear road to like, okay, I learned from that. I won't do this again. I won't do that. I'm not doing business with him. And say, okay, next time I won't be making those mistakes. I might make other mistakes, but I won't make those ones. And then understand that eventually you're going to get good at it and persist, I agree. People
Yeah.
will just quit.
Yeah. In the real estate as well, like especially me at the beginning, I had the shiny object syndrome like most people. And I said, okay, well, I'm not going to do fix and flip anymore. Let me try this. Let me try that. Right. And I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, but you definitely spin your wheels a lot more when you're doing this and that. Right. And so thankfully, again, just pushing through all these learning experiences, I did my first buy and hold at the time, like a year after the whole investment of the money. I did
Nice.
my first buy and hold, and with someone at Atlanta RIA too that we met, and we ended up making a good amount of money because what we did was we bought it off market. It was an inherited property from someone, and they didn't want to sell it on the market because they had a tenant in there, and the tenant was a family friend of his. So he was like, I don't want anyone to come in and kick him out. I want an investor to buy it so they can keep him in. So we ended up doing a lease option with the tenant,
Nice.
and we asked him for a certain amount of deposit. So at the time, the property was valued at 100,000, or that's how much we bought it for. Essentially, it was valued for more, but we bought it for 100,000. We used an investor loan, so we put 15% down, which was 15,000 plus the closing costs. And basically, the lease option tenant gave us a $5,000 deposit. So we ended up being, 15,000 all in, and I JV'd partnered with this one on it. And so I was $7,500 in for a property that was valued at, I think at the time, like 130, 140,000. So we already came in with some equity.
Very nice. Now, was it cash flowing or was it losing?
It was cash flowing. It was only cash flowing like $300 a month.
It's enough. It's in the right direction.
Yeah, exactly. And that was, I think, one of the biggest deals to date still, because it was, it was an amazing deal. And by the time we sold, it was 2021, 2 years later, and the property had valued over, I think, over 180,000.
Nice.
So,
Why did you sell it? Why, because buy and hold,
well,
hold, hold.
we did the lease option, right? So we did the lease option. So we knew we weren't going to hold it too long.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. So the tenant actually bought it.
So what we ended up doing with the tenant, well, that was when COVID hit. So it was like end of 2020 when he was supposed to execute the option and he didn't. So we were in that process of saying, well, do we extend the lease option? Do we find another lease option tenant or do we sell it? And the market was peak high heading to 2021. And we were like, let's sell it. We were able to help the tenant. We gave him some money to move. We definitely, did our best to kind of understand the situation. And he was getting older as well, and he felt like, maybe I don't want to, go through the process of buying the property. So he ended up moving, and we ended up selling. So at the end of the day, we, tried our best to help him out. But he was a self-employed, so COVID happened, and him being self-employed, it's hard to get a mortgage at that.
Yes, of course, of course. Now that we're in 2025, looking back, are you glad you sold it or do you wish you'd held on to it?
That's a great question. I would say I'm glad I sold it. Sometimes I feel like people hold that like I should have kept it, but at the moment in time, personally and in business, that money really injected me to be able to do a lot more and maybe move my business into a direction where I wanted it.
Great,
So,
great. Talk about that.
yeah.
You had gotten into this property. That was pretty cool. What other things were you doing when you held it for a while in your business? And what did you do with the money that came out of it? How did it help your business? What
Yeah.
direction did it go?
That's a great question. And that's, again, what I mean by, in this business, either you have shiny object syndrome or you're not consistent with what you did. So, I stopped being consistent with real estate. Like I wasn't going to events as much. I wasn't, incorporating myself with a community. Back then, I mean, I didn't even think about sub two gator, where I'm at now, right? I didn't have that back then when I owned that property, and I was looking at other things to do, but I know I didn't want to fix and flip again because, like I said, I felt like it was a lot of work, and it wasn't something I naturally enjoyed. I'm not good, I'm not handy, I don't like decorations. It wasn't like I really enjoyed it, right?
Gotcha.
So it was like, okay, well, still trying to figure it out. I still had my W-2 at the time. So I
What
still
were you doing?
I was in banking. Yeah, I was in banking. I was a banker, business banker, personal banker. So I was moving up the corporate ladder while I was dabbling in real estate.
Well, the good thing about that is it would have allowed you, am I correct in thinking it would have allowed you to see traditional financing more and maybe commercial financing?
Yes, so it did give me an insight into lending, how lending work, how to use credit to leverage things. So it did give me the opportunity to learn that.
Yeah, and I think when you have a W 2, in some ways, it's a curse because, like you said, you were going up the corporate ladder, you were comfortable. If that had been not there, you might have said, oh shit, I got to really roll my sleeves up and I got to do it, you know. But because you had more options, maybe that means that you took more time.
And especially if you're making, in your eyes, you're making good money. You're making money to live comfortably, like you said. I didn't have a reason to leave my job, right? It was more of like I love business. I like the idea of working for myself. I like the idea of not having a boss. But, have a necessarily a blueprint or capital that you're given and said, here's this capital, here's this blueprint, start this business. You really are all over the place to try to figure things out.
So what did you do?
So then COVID happened. A lot of people, I think, use that term. And then COVID happened.
Yeah, trust me.
COVID happened, and there was a lot of like regulations and things changing in the corporate banking world. And I got to a fork in the road whether I was either going to scale, I was going up the ladder to the second position. And it's very much politics in the corporate world. And so I was put in a position where they weren't giving it to me, and they were using different excuses as far as the experience. And I had been working in banking for almost 9 years at the time, and I said, you know what, this is exactly the reason why business gives you that ability to say, I'm going to push myself up to where I want to go without having to ask for permission, right? That was a key. So, no, I mean, I got really frustrated and I left. I left. And while I was in banking, I wasn't able to get my license, because that's something I always wanted to do, is get my license, because it just gives me the opportunity to not only do things for myself, but for other people and help
Yeah.
other people.
What, were you not allowed to, you mean, or what?
I was not allowed to. They called it conflict of interest.
Hmm. Okay. Whatever. I guess it's their business. They can do what they want. So
Exactly.
when you left, like what happened at that time? I can see the decision making, especially as a woman. I've had that share of, life not being fair in many ways. So I can see the decision being made. But what did you do? Did you make the decision and then say, okay, I'm going to leave, but before I leave, I got to line up all my ducks in a row. I'm going to, no, I'm going to tell them to F off when I'm ready and I'm going to be set? Or did you decide the opposite, to just say, okay, F you, and then figure it out?
Yeah, so I played it safe. I'm very much of a safe person when it comes to things. I'd like to make sure that I don't jump in the deep end. That's what I'm saying. I kind of go down the stairs. Yeah.
Yep,
They say
I
you
understand.
go.
Mind you, that kind of a situation sometimes can make you jump.
Yes.
I'm out of here.
I agree that there could be situations. So I found a different job in a completely different field. I went remote so that I could have more time to. And this was also when a lot more remote jobs were happening because of COVID. So like 2021, I left. I
What
also
did you
had
go
this
into?
software health system. So it was like an Epic company, like medical electronic medical records. Just a customer service person there, which
Okay.
was funny and crazy because I didn't know half of the language. Like the medical field has just a crazy different amount of. I was just so used to corporate banking that I was like completely lost. But I knew this was going to give me the opportunity to get myself into the water as to what I wanted. So I went to a remote job and I was, working there at the same time I started studying for my license as a real estate agent, because they didn't have a conflict with that.
Good for you.
And yeah, and so when I got my license, I started more in the retail world, more of like putting, I guess, a job cap on as well, because being in the retail world, you are very much in the job space, meaning that um it's not, you're not building anything, right? You're just working for a check.
Yep.
You're still
You're
taking money.
following the directions. Yep.
Correct. So the first probably year and a half once I left corporate banking, I was working real estate as a realtor. So I went to the courses, I learned the contracts, I learned the retail transactions, and it went well. Honestly, I'm blessed to say it went really well. I had a lot of friends that decided, oh, Maria has a license, so let's buy or sell with her. And so I built it up to a point where I could replace my W-2 with what I was doing. And that's what I did. So in 2023, I left W-2 employee.
Congrats.
Thank you. Thanks. And so there I was still working it, but I was like, okay, but now I have the flexibility and the time to pursue what I want to find in real estate, what I want to do in real estate. And that's when I started getting involved. I went crazy. I joined Gator, then I joined Sub 2, I started consuming again. I started going to networking events again. And I started understanding what I wanted to do.
When did you join Gator?
Probably October of 2023.
Okay.
And then I joined Sub 2 a couple months after, like, yeah, the beginning of 2020.
That was the same thing I did because I didn't know about Sub 2. And then met Pace online. I was still in Canada. And it was about Gator. And I thought, okay, this is cool.
I got my gator hat on.
Got your Gator? Go Gator. So I was like, okay, that's what I'm doing. And then as soon as I joined Gator, I was like, I didn't like the name. I was like, why is he naming us Gators? You know? And then when I joined, I said, these people are acting like gators. Everybody was disorganized. We were crazy. And he was like, you're not like Sub 2. Sub 2 is well behaved, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, what's this Sub 2? I said, his heart is in Sub 2. I got to check it out. Took me 2 weeks and I joined Sub 2. So I think it's interesting that if you join Sub 2 first, you may not join Gator, especially at that time, because he included it in Sub 2 at the beginning. There were different versions, the Gator, and then Gator 0.10, 2.0, 3.0, blah, blah. He included it for quite a while. And then he stopped including it and said, okay, you have to join Gator if you want it. And in Sub 2, there's so much, you might not have said, well, I think I should go into lending, because there's so many, 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 many things in Sub 2. Whereas in Gator, it's different kinds of lending, but it's all lending. So it's interesting that we joined in a similar way.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely felt like I was missing out. I definitely felt like, well, I mean, I joined Gator because I wanted to learn how to leverage more, especially the business credit, the personal credit, how to grow it to a point where I could, maybe use it for projects or use it for different reasons. But yeah, I definitely felt like I was missing out. So quickly after that, I think it was like, I took a little bit longer than you. I think I joined like a couple months later, but I definitely joined soon after. And Sub 2, it went like, it just blew up for me. Like, as far as learning what to do, I think I was one of the first people to get on that TC wagon because,
Yes, and I did that too.
yeah,
Matter of fact, I remember seeing you and Noah at the
yeah,
very beginning. Remember when Caleb was doing it?
yep, yep, yep.
And it was free. Again,
It
Pace is
was,
such a genius, isn't he? I
yeah.
mean, it's free, so come and learn. And Caleb was a really good teacher, and I liked the people that he had grace. He had a bunch of people actually that were helping him and stuff. I did you want to be a TC?
I wanted to be able to help everyone everywhere. And I wanted to learn how to incorporate myself. Like, what can I bring to the table? And I felt like the best way to learn very targeted things, especially in the creative world where I didn't even know what a Sub 2 transaction looked like. I
Yeah,
said I feel like the TC angle is going to be the best to learn the full aspect
gotcha.
from contract to close.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I did not want to be a TC. No way. But I wanted to know about TCing and what makes a good TC. Because you go through the course and then everybody's, I'm a TC, I'm a TC, I'm a TC. And I'm like, yeah, okay. No, not, you can't all be good TCs. Who are the ones that are really good? So I went for that purpose. And I went right until um, they decided they're going to they started doing all the tiers of testing. And I was like, forget the testing. I don't want to pass the test. I just want to know who can pass the test. And I don't want to become a TC because when they started charging for it and giving the certificates, I was like, no, that's not me. I've got what I want out of it.
yeah. What
Did you
I
go and get that?
No, no, I didn't. I came out of it before that started as well. But what it did allow me to do is open my eyes to see like how many different ways you could actually make money. And the one that kept like just in my eye was wholesaling, just because I was able to see a lot of, wholesalers and wholesale deals through being a TC, being able to see how just putting things together like a piece of puzzle got you paid. And that's what I went for. So after learning how to TC, I did that for a while, and then I started to build up my wholesale business while I was doing that. And that's what 100% I'm doing now. So 100% of my business is wholesale.
Okay, let's talk about that. Sen. Okay. How many people are involved? What are you wholesaling? Because you can wholesale just about anything. And
True.
how has it been going? Tell me about that part of your journey.
Yes. So I love to share that because I'm pretty much an open book with it. I mean, I love connecting with people on it. But I do hunt. So I do Georgia market. This is my only market. I learned to laser focus in wholesale because I felt like if I wanted to be good at something, I need to focus on one specific avenue, one specific thing. So I have one market, which is Georgia, and I have one exit strategy, which is cash wholesaling.
Cash wholesaling?
Cash wholesaling, meaning,
Explain.
yes. So I get contracts for cash investors.
So you go and get contracts, good deals for people who pay cash,
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
and they're all investors and not end buyers.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Stop calling me ma'am. I'm not.
I do that to everyone. I'm sorry.
Hey, you guys, if you ever meet me, don't call me ma'am.
Okay.
You can call me
Yes,
anything
Effie.
but ma'am. Okay. So that's interesting. Okay, so where do you source your deals?
Okay. So I do primarily leads are probate leads and expired listing.
Oh, that's interesting. So you're talking with attorneys and with direct sellers?
So I do direct to seller. Yes. Direct to
So
seller,
that's
but
expired listings, right?
yeah, but with probates, I don't talk to the attorneys. I talk directly to the inherited party. So whoever the administrator or the executor is, because that's public records, just like pre-foreclosures is public records, probates are public records as well.
Okay. So administrators and
Executors
executors.
of
Okay.
your
So
probate.
you find them and then you approach them and say, look, I can help you to.
Help you in the probate process, and if the family is looking to sell the property off, we're cash investor buyers looking to purchase property.
Okay, interesting. And then the other ones you go to is finding expired listings, which there are so many of.
So
And
many.
then you go to them and say, hey, knucklehead, now that your house hasn't sold for, a whole year at $3 million, are you ready to bring it down to 500,000? Because you're not going to sell it.
Yes, and I try to have those conversations in the most direct way, but also in a way that is easy for them to understand. Because it is hard to have a conversation with someone that wants top dollar, and to get them down here, it's very difficult.
So why not let them get top dollar and instead do some like seller carryback or something like that?
Great question. I It depends on the lead source. So with a probate, most of the
Yeah,
time the probates have to be satisfied, right?
right.
It's just
Yeah.
like so. A lot of times they will almost always go for the cash route. They need to sell to liquidate assets and then pay off any debts that the estate might have. With expireds, we do offer options. We do have the creative conversation. We do have the seller finance option, the hybrid options. We do go through that. In my experience, from those conversations, I would probably do 20 wholesale cash deals before I do one creative. And even with that one creative, it is a very much struggle to get them to the point that they want to do it. They have to be in a very, very low equity position, or in a position where they're worried about taxes, capital gains, or something like that, where they're very open to go that route.
Gotcha.
Because from our conversations, a lot of times they're like, just give me the cash. Even if it's at a discount, I'd rather take the money now than later.
Okay,
It's just
that's interesting. So then, as a wholesaler, is it usually just yourself that's between the seller and the buyer, or are there multiple wholesalers?
That's a great question, Effie. I love real estate for that matter. One can look like a roller coaster, and one can look like just from a sprint. Yeah, from here to the 50-meter dash. Like that's it, right? So most of the time I would say I'm the connector. So I'm directly with the seller, and then I have the buyer and I'm directly with the buyer. But a lot of times I would be directly to a dispo person, and the dispo person is who brings the buyer. So two of us are making money on that.
In a case, so normally we have our A, which is the seller, and B, which is the buyer. And as a wholesaler, you do A to B and B to C,
If I
or do you
assign
just
it,
bring the contract in?
correct. If I assign it, it goes directly from A to B, and I'm just the glue that holds it together, and I get paid by the buy.
Okay. And if it happens to be that you are needing a dispo, like it's not going or whatever, and someone says, "Oh, I can do that. I'll dispo it for you." So now you've got two people in the middle, and then you've got the buyer.
Correct. We can still assign it, so we do a double assignment,
Right. Got it.
or we could double close it. So I will become the B, and then I will be the B to the C, and there could be an assignment in the middle.
Yep.
So
So it's either a double assign or a double close. Okay. Very interesting. And how long have you been doing the wholesaling for?
so I started getting more serious in 2023 when I left the W-2, and I was already doing the realtor stuff. So I was learning contracts. So I started to learn um, a lot about the legality, the legal aspects of it, learning what attorneys are investor friendly, what attorneys are not, what do I need to double close. I started just learning all that. So I would say consistently since 2023, like end towards end of 2023 when I started.
Okay. Nice. And is it yourself, or do you also have other people that are working with you?
Yeah, so it's me, myself, my JV partner, and we have a couple of co-callers.
Okay, so you have a JV partner. Now, is that person a silent partner or are they active?
They active. So they'll like it's almost like an acquisition help when it comes to, nurturing the leads and getting the leads under contract. Sometimes if it's directly with me, so I have my own LLC, and let's say for example we start working together, Effie, we just work together as far as what you're comfortable with. If you're comfortable making calls, I'll provide the leads, you make the calls, and then we just JV partner on the deal, right? So it's more of we have our individual businesses, and then we partner together on the
Okay,
deal.
but when you do that, do you guys each, like you, when you have a contract, are you both on there as this JV and that JV, or do you guys have a joint JV? Because that joint, which one?
That's a great question. So I usually would put it under contract under my company, and then we just do a JV agreement. And the JV agreement is sort of private, where the only person that knows about it is an attorney, because that's how they pay out.
Got it. Okay, interesting.
Yeah. Now I know that if we purchase a property together, let's say we were to purchase a property together, then we could do JV as far as both LLCs on the.
Yes, yes. Then it's a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's really cool. And did you say you have, okay, so you've got your JV partner, and did you say you also have VAs? I'm sorry.
Yes, two VAs, correct.
And what do the VAs do for you?
They are making calls, checking inboxes, making sure that everything is functioning as far as calling leads, texting leads, emailing. That's mostly outbound outreach. I also personally do a lot of inbound, which is PPL, what they call it, pay per lead. Okay, so just buying leads off websites and then just calling them, qualifying them, and presenting the offer.
Who do you use for your pay-per lead?
Lead Zolo.
Okay.
Lead Zolo, yeah.
And what CRM do you guys use?
It's Recently.
Okay, I don't know. All right. Cool. Very, very cool. I think that's exciting.
Yeah.
So now talk to us about volume. You're doing this full time. So about how many deals are you guys doing per year, let's say in 2025?
Yeah, so this is probably the best tracked year as far as spending, ad spend, marketing spend, and income coming in. So, and what I mean by that is because it's before this year, it was very inconsistent. Also, because the work has to be very consistent. Like, even though I can have a great week and make good money, I can't just go, stay at home, put my feet up, and just chill, right?
Got to keep that funnel coming.
Exactly. So then you got to start thinking, okay, what's the next 30 days like? What's the next 60 days like? So this year has finally been the year where, we've all been kind of tracking that and being able to, stay consistent with everything. So I would use this year as a great analysis. So, our deals, as far as monthly, I would say anywhere from 4 to 6 since the beginning of the year, a month.
Nice.
Yeah, so anywhere between 40 and 50,000.
That's sweet. Is your JV partner full time also?
Yes, correct.
Wow. That's cool. Very, very nice. You can both afford to support yourselves and stay and build the business.
Correct.
Because I'm
Correct. And
sure you,
also,
what are you shooting for? What's your goal?
yeah, that's a great question, Effie. Honestly, that's probably one that needs the most work. And what I mean by that is you have to understand that in this business, you can shoot for more, but that's going to come with more responsibility, right?
And or more VAs or hiring a wholesaler to do things on commission. It's going to require more because even though you're hardworking and efficient, and your partner may be the same, it's still you're limited by your 24-hour production.
Exactly, exactly. And that's why it's a hard thing to tackle right now. Our goal as 2025 would be to stay consistent for the whole year. I would say that's our short-term goal. It's not maybe about growing past where we're at. It's about keeping it consistent throughout the whole 12 months.
Hmm.
So far it's been. So I think that's our biggest goal right now. And then as far as long-term goal, obviously being able to get incorporated more into projects. So we sell a lot of really good deals where a lot of the investors that buy end up making, crazy amount of money on, and we decide not to take the risk, not to incorporate the capital spend in taking it down. um and maybe being able to do that a lot more, right? Being able to partner with other people who are creating capital, partner with them, taking those deals down. I would ideally love to do more hotels, not full on fix and flips.
Hotels?
Hotels, yes. Hotel.
Hotels.
Yes.
Sorry, I thought you said hotels. Partly because I just met my neighbor behind me and she works in hotels. And I was like, hotels? I'm in Chicago, right? She goes, oh, yeah, Chicago is a big center for hotels, like throughout the country. I was like, who do I know that is into hotels? So when you first said that, I was like, what?
Yeah, so hotels,
Hotels.
yeah, which is like wholesale, except here you take it down on paper instead of assigning it or double closing it. You take it down on paper, you clean it out, you do very minimal work, and then you put it right back on the.
So it's the same process as wholesaling, except that you get into the deal and you do some of the minimal work, getting rid of the garbage, making it easier for a fix and flipper to come in, and you sell it usually to a fix and flipper.
Correct. Or sometimes the property is in good enough condition where you can put it on the market and maybe a conventional buyer is able to buy it. So they're
Okay,
able to pay a little bit more than your
got it.
investor buyers.
Got it. Very nice.
So
So
those.
it's interesting to see your path and how consistency is a very important part of it. And if I heard you correctly, you guys are smart enough to just say, let's see how consistent we can be on this for how long. And then let's take the next step into asset development by buying it ourselves for a short period of time while we clean it out and either sell it to an end user or to a fixer. So you're getting a bigger bite.
Correct. There's two things that come along with that. One would be the risk of taking it down, because then you're talking about bringing in capital, and obviously, it would ideally be a capital partner, right? So you're talking about putting involving more people and putting more money at risk. And second, it's also the timeline, right? So the timeline
Holding.
holding. Exactly. We're so used to having a contract that literally 2 weeks later is out the door, when now we have a project that might take 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, that we have to, nurture, keep the lights on, like they say, keep everything, insurance, for example, on the property. Like, everything just becomes, yes, the increase, you see it. I understand that. So the money increase, you see it, but you also see the increase in job responsibility or time responsibility.
Yes, yes, I agree. The risk of something going wrong is more. The longer you hold it, the more the risk. And also the time element. Because if you are saying, okay, I know who we can hire to come in and clean this. This is man's work. We'll just get, I know the 5 people that we can get in and clean it out in 5 days. You still have to, get the dumpster. You have to know where you're going to dispose of it. There's still so many steps that if you are doing that, you're taking your eye off of the next funnel of bringing in more.
And also, Effie, I want people to understand wholesaling is not just about getting a contract, finding someone to buy it, and then that's it. Like, there's a lot of aspects where we got to get on phone calls. There's liens that the seller might have not anticipated. There's all these sorts of situations that happen during the title work. As a TC, I think you see it, right? But as someone who might not understand what TC work looks like, it's also time consuming.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And so there's things that do go wrong, even in a wholesale deal. So you can imagine the step up of actually taking something down and then going through it. So
Got it. Well, I think you're smart. Just focus on consistency. It's like going to the gym. Whatever reps you build up and you've got the muscle, then you can focus on something else. And you should be able to continue those reps without it being too disturbing, as opposed to, you know,
yeah, and
spreading yourself thinly.
Effie, I know people in my space who are in my same market and they're doing 100K months, right? But I also know the amount of time they put in. I have a family. I have a almost 3 year old son, and I know that I love to enjoy my hours off, I would say. So, knowing that if I were to have a business twice the volume of right now, I would know how much more uh,
Time it would take
heavy,
and
how much more heavy it would feel on my shoulders. So I know sometimes people are like, oh, well, you're making this much, I guess your next goal is to make twice as much. Well, not necessarily. That's maybe what society puts on us to say, just grow it. I am happy making the amount of money I'm making. I would have never made this amount of money in my W-2. Okay. So now it's about playing smarter with what we have. Let's keep it consistent. And from there, decide to take the risk once we know this like the back of our hand.
exactly. And the other place where you can increase your profitability is to figure out how to constantly look at what you're spending money on and to cut. In other words, if one particular list is more fortuitous than another, cut the other one. Get the ones where the returns are the highest. What's most dependable? What can you get for free? All that sort of stuff. Instead of letting it get bloated.
Exactly, exactly. And that this business requires you to do something consistent enough for you to know where the changes need to be made. And that's an issue that if you don't do it long enough, then how do you know it's not working? How do you know it's not something that you're doing wrong? Right. So even though everyone wants to get in real estate to get something quick, I feel like this is actually a long game. And
Of course.
the same thing every day, the longer you do that, the better you get at knowing, how to make it better, how to make the machine flow better. When does it need an oil change? So
I
it's a
agree.
lot of that.
I agree wholeheartedly. And I like the fact that you're looking at your quality of life as a cost if you're going to try to make more, that you value that enough to want to, you know, keep an eye on it and make it part of the equation.
Yeah. And that's just my personality. Again,
Well, it's your life. It's
I'm
your
not
life.
the one that jumps in the deep end. I'm just not. And I know myself well enough to know that I'm not just going to go in and jump into something. I like to, systematically do it. I like to take my time with it. I'm not in a rush. Like it's okay to be that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Before we wrap this up, I'd like to ask you, what would you say to someone who is just starting out in real estate? Twofold. They're coming in and they go, "Oh, you're in real estate. Well, you've been in it for a while now. Where should I start?" That. And what if the person comes in and feels like, "Oh, I know where to start. It's going to be wholesaling." What pieces of advice would you give to each of those two people?
Yes. So if you're coming into real estate and you're not sure, so that's the first question, right? If you're coming into real estate
And they don't know what to go on. You bounced around a bit. What do you think I should do?
yes. So the first thing you need to know or you need to do is find something that makes you money, right? That's why I did the TC work because it wasn't about, oh, I want to make 20 grand wholesaling in my first month. It was like, can I make $300, $500, doing one file? Can I this week? Can I make a small amount of change doing one thing, right? And TC is probably it's not the easiest thing to do, but it's a lot of people need it. I would say a lot more people need it. So then getting into a market and going full force on wholesale, right? So I would say the first thing is what can you do today, what you can incorporate today to make money. Another thing that you could do is bird dogging, right? Pace talks about it a lot. Go find someone a deal, they'll pay you for it. And that's making money today,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Do the legwork.
Yeah. So, what can I do to make money? But what can I do to make money while I learn? I think that's the biggest thing.
Oh, I like that. What can you do to make money while you learn?
Exactly. So, because a lot of people are consuming because they want to learn, but they're not taking the action, right? They're moving the right hand, but they're not moving the left, right? So, what can I do to make money and learn? So, TC is a great example. Bird Dog is another great example because you're just going to find, a property that looks in bad shape. You're just talking to people and finding out, I'm going through foreclosure, I'm going through this, I'm going through that. An agent, you might talk to an agent and say, like, I have this situation with a seller. She needs, like, just go and talk to people, go drive around, go to networking events, become someone's, help, right? And that's the best way to make money while you learn. So that's what I would say.
Smart.
That's what I would say. Just find something that you could do. A connector is a great one, right? Which is something that I guess is used a lot in, especially with the community. Yeah, connect, but you have to go and talk to people to connect. You have to go in and move, take action, right? And then the second question was if someone knows what they want to do. So I want to wholesale. I want to wholesale. Okay. Understand that wholesaling is creating a company. It's creating a business. Just like if you say I want to open a restaurant, right? Because I feel like people say I want to wholesale as if that's the action. That's not the action. That is a company that you're building, right? It's like saying I want to cook. Well, do you want to cook or do you want to open a restaurant? Because there's two different things, right? No, I want to open a restaurant because I'm a great cook, right? So when you say wholesaling, what do you want to do? Do you want to be the greatest connector in the world? Because those who run wholesale companies, that's what they do. But better connector, I would say marketer is better than connector when it comes to wholesaling companies. So if you want to wholesale, just know that you want to be the best marketer there is, right?
Is that what you
So
would recommend for them to, um, focus on marketing to other um, wholesalers or such, as opposed to getting into a wholesale company?
Right. So if it's your first time, if you know you want to wholesale and you have never maybe done a wholesale deal, you have to learn how to market, right? So learn how to put the deals together, right? So I do a lot of JV now because people know I have buyers. And I've built buyers because this is what I do, right? I find great deals and I have the buyers. So people approach me as, "Hey, I have a good deal. I just don't have the buyers," right? So that's all about marketing,
Nice.
right? So if someone comes in and says, "I want to be a wholesaler," understand you're building a company and you have to be a great marketer. Okay. And then from there, yeah, I mean, it's a company. So you either invest time or you invest money. If you don't have the
Looking
time,
at your analogy of a restaurant, you'd have to make sure that you can cook first. How many recipes have you got that people like, and if you have enough recipes to bring to, a restaurant, then you might want to move to the next stage of opening a restaurant, although that is a very tough business, but still
and
the
so is
analogy, right?
wholesaling. It is a tough business.
Yep, if you want to be a marketer, that basically means you have to have lots of good recipes.
Exactly. So I would just say that. And always JV. Always look for people to connect with, right? Like with you, Effie, with me. Like anyone can approach me. I'm in the community. You're in the community. Like anyone could send me a message and say, "Listen, I'm a little lost. I need help," or "What can I do?" Right. And I've talked to a lot of people in this community, and I tell them the biggest thing. So if you want to start the business, you either have the time or you have the money. And if you have the time, start working with other people, start understanding what deals they're looking for, start connecting with other people to get you into the space. That's
Sounds great. Maria, if someone wants to reach out to you, how could they get a hold of you?
yeah. So they can look me up on Facebook. That's my name. If you go to Sub Two or Gator, I'm there as well.
So, do you use like Maria? Is there a dot between Maria and Bonilla? Or,
For Facebook, no, it's just like that. As far as Instagram, it would be Meet Bonilla, like Meet Effie. It would be Meet Bonilla. I
okay,
go
meet Bonilla, does that have a dot between it?
no, just
Okay,
at Meet Bonilla.
okay. So, at meet Bonilla for IG, and for Facebook, just Maria Bonilla.
Yes, you got
Awesome. I love it. Well, there you go, guys.
it.
I definitely would recommend that if you have any questions, a lot of Maria's advice is very solid and it's based on personal experience. So I think that that gives it a different kind of credibility, but you also know how to reach out to her.
I'm
So I'd
here.
like to say thank you very, very much, Maria.
Thank you, Effie. Thank you for the invite.
Please. And we shall see you guys next time. Thank you so much. Don't go anywhere.
Peace out.
And we shall see you next time. Thank you, guys. Take care.